Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Lovely to see you all virtually. I always miss the benefit of being in the room and having that face to face. So apologies, I can't be with you today, but a pleasure to be able to join you virtually. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the DFE appointed improvement advisor for Herefordshire, and I've been working with them for just over a year now on their children's services improvement agenda. And I'm really excited about the possibility of some of the work that we can do together, not just in isolation for children's services, but for the whole community in Herefordshire. So I've been talking with lots of other people in the community, faith, voluntary and private sector about this work and the possibilities, but also with colleagues in Herefordshire Council about how this can be a part of Herefordshire's children's services improvements. It's fair to say there's been some tough learning for Herefordshire Children's Services in the last couple of years, and very well publicised, high profile, High Court judgments, the DFE intervention, the improvement board, the improvement plan, the recent Ofsted with the outcome of inadequate, and then the appointment of the Commissioner, Eleanor Brazil, and more recently, Eleanor's report. It sets out some pretty stark and very concerning areas that need to improve for children and families in Herefordshire and how we work with them, not just the council, but all of us. And there is a fantastic opportunity now. The timing is probably the best it's ever been to do something different, maybe a bit more radical. There is a lot of support going into Herefordshire Children's Services and more to come as part of the package from the DFE. And we need to use this wisely. We need to take advantage. This feels like a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I've met lots of people, I've met lots of families in Herefordshire that say, we've heard it all before. We don't think it can change. It's not going to be any different. Why should we get excited and invest now? And I think it's because there is all of this external support, help and focus on Herefordshire that means it's got to improve, it's got to change. And that's not an option. And Herefordshire as a council, as a partnership, is really signed up to doing something different. And we've got this brilliant, timely opportunity to change our relationship, not just with all those community, faith and voluntary sector organisations, but also our relationship with children, young people and families, that we work with them, that we talk to them, that we listen to them in a very different way. As Donna said, we empower our families and we take on board what is it that they think is going to make a difference to their lives. How do we create for them a sense of opportunity, resilience, the ability to help themselves on a local level in a way that doesn't feel stigmatized, doesn't feel done to, but feels that they are able to be the architect of change for themselves and their children. And when children and young people tell us how they want things to be, what would make it better, we often don't listen. We pay lip service. We carry on doing what we've always done, and we get what we've always had. And we need to move away from that. We need to show through our actions, actually, you said we did. Next slide, please. So in that new relationship, we need to start building a collaboration based on equal respect, mutual trust, confidence. we've got an opportunity for real growth and further investment in Herefordshire. We can get better value from the disparate parts of the public sector and the community, faith, voluntary and private sector. Let's grab those opportunities. Let's really use evidence-based practice. Let's look at research. What does it tell us about what works? What does it tell us about a shift in how we need to work differently post-COVID? We're in a whole new radical uncertainty, and I think we've got to acknowledge that, and we've got to pull out the things we can be certain about. And there are lots of evidence research about what does work. Let's put that out there for families to have access to. And when we do that, it's not a free-for-all. Let's just do that because we really fancy that and we think that might be okay. Let's find some way of measuring. Let's make it real. So let's have some outcomes-based accountability. We don't have to keep doing what we've always done. Let's pick out some really meaningful measures that we can follow. And if we can shift away from what we know hasn't worked in Herefordshire or elsewhere indeed, from those very highly intrusive, high-cost statutory interventions where families are defaulted into a system, and Donna described it well, not just for children but for adults, that propels them into being done to or into very high level, high cost acute responses. If we can shift away from that and help families help themselves and also create resilience, don't rely on these public sector organisations. Let's find alternatives. You know, when I was growing up, I remember very well how the community I lived in helped people when they were in trouble. We lived in back-to-back housing where we'd be nipping across to each other's yards and you know, making meals for older people that were struggling, doing lots of things to help each other. We're not in the same communities now, but we can capture some of that essence of people want to help. So let's facilitate them to help, and let's shift away as much as possible so that only those that need the absolute, very specialist, very high cost, very resource intensive services get it. The rest of us, we can get it from our communities. There are some outstanding, excellent services in Herefordshire. I've seen them school-based, charity-based, voluntary-based, and we've got to absolutely capitalise on those and grow more of those. Next slide, please. So we pulled a paper together. It was a collaborative approach. The person that got us thinking along the community paradigm was actually Rob from Venture, and he sent me the paper Donna talked about from New Local Community Paradigm. And you know, we started looking, could this work for children's? No, it needs to be bigger than children's. Let's put some thoughts into a paper, and I shared that with Paul and others and Eleanor, and they went, it's a no-brainer, this makes sense, let's see what we can do. And from little acorns we know grow huge oaks. So in the paper we talked about what would it look like if we had a really good local offer, a bit like the Wigan deal, a bit of a new relationship with Herefordshire communities. And we didn't have the frustration that some of our public service processes put lots of red tape and bureaucracy around. And how can we get to families very early in a way that doesn't switch them off, doesn't frighten them, doesn't threaten them, isn't paternalistic, and actually makes them feel valued and empowered to change things themselves, for themselves and for their children. And, you know, we had a couple of massive events. There's been lots of consultation in Herefordshire. Young people, family, community faith, voluntary sector colleagues are telling us what they want and what works. And there are lots of young people that are feeling disaffected. They're feeling the real impact of COVID isolation and the lack of things to do and support for new problems that are emerging in their lives, and they want help in a different way. So there are lots of innovative ways we can do that, and that's part of what I hope we can build into this new paradigm, and maybe reach some of those young people, some of those children, families, adults that have been a bit hidden away, and then they've got to very acute problems, and then they're whisked into high cost acute services. Next slide, please. So we also talked about the scope to better coordinate, work together, avoid duplication, avoid gaps, harness all the efforts. You know, Hillary's right. And Paul's right, we have got so many experts out there in Herefordshire, many of whom are sat in the room today, that are keen to do this, that have the skills to do this. So let's get that whole effort together. Let's look at what's already working. There are things we can build on. The Herefordshire Foundation, I read every week about some of the great work they're doing. The investment that's gone into Talk Community, is there something there that can be used differently, that can be built on, that could be reignited, changed? And how do we get all those really small, often competing charities, voluntary efforts, feeling that they can still play their part, even though they're not able to have all the infrastructure to bid for some of the big monies? Let's bring them into the fold. Let's welcome them. Let's take advantage of what they can offer. We've got some amazing community influencers in Herefordshire, and they're not just people that are in positions of power. They are people that sit in neighbourhoods that can influence what happens on their street, on their estate, in their rural community. So let's reach out to them. They're very different to us professionals, and that's good. They're different in a good way. So let's use their assets. Let's really make use of the energy and the difference that they bring. And, you know, I think it is true. I've been around social work, children's services, you know, over 40 years. I've been a director in 6 local authorities. I've taken services from inadequate to outstanding. I've seen just about every way of working over the years. I'm still learning, and I am really excited about the possibilities here. Next slide, please. So we hold on to, I love the phrase, the art of the possible, because I don't think anything is impossible if we put our minds to it. We can do this in Herefordshire, and I'm certainly hoping that it can contribute to the improvements we're already seeing in children's services and those yet to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Gladys.